Today we're going to talk about Homestuck Made This World, a Homestuck read-through podcast by Michael Lutz and Cameron Kunzelman from Range to Touch. Let's start with an overview. So Homestuck Made This World is a read-along podcast, so they are reading the whole comic and epilogues and talking through it as they go. As far as this type of podcast subgenre perhaps, it's one of the very few ones to finish it. In episode 1, Michael mentions a bunch of other podcasts he was listening to at the time, and of those, as of 2026, only one has managed to actually finish reading the whole comic, which is a Homestuck podcast by Aiden and John. As I was looking for takes on the podcast out there, it seemed like a lot of the positive reviews came from people who historically were not fans, and had never thought about encountering Homestuck, and definitely hadn't planned on reading it ever until this podcast came out, and they found it to be a helpful tool for their journey. So if that applies to you, then that's probably a good sign, and you should try it. Don't be afraid. This podcast is here for you. This podcast wants to help you. I, however, am a fandom-ass fan, so I am here to tell other fandom-ass fans that it is a worthwhile listen. I read this comic during the first Gigapause and basically grew up with the 2014 to 2018 era fandom culture, and like a lot of people, especially on Tumblr, I was really into fan art, cosplay, shipping, crossovers, kind of everything you can think of, especially in the visual realm rather than the analysis realm. So the experience of listening to Michael and Cameron go through this is really different and interesting, and sometimes a little jarring. Michael was a serial reader and a forums user at the time. So as they go through the comic, Michael will give all the here's what the forums are doing, this is how this type of fan was engaging with it. A lot of really people who like to speculate and puzzle through stuff and predict what's going to happen. A very different method of fan engagement from what I experienced back in 2016. Both Michael and Cameron are academics with PhDs in various types of media studies, so they are discussing this comic with a level of intensity and academic quality I had not considered. I definitely didn't think about when I was in high school reading this, just random style. As a side note, I really enjoyed their discussion on the author function. So if you are interested in some media criticism stuff and you don't want to listen to the whole podcast, I would check out episode 2 part 2 for that. They bring in a variety of comparative media, from academic texts like The Interface Effect by Alexander Galloway to different types of fiction that they're using to read, use as a lens to read the story through, like The Never-Ending Story, or just some fun ones, like Cameron gives us updates on F-Boy Island. All equally important, IMO. As anyone engaging with media is going to do, they latch on to different aspects of the comic than I did, and in ways that sometimes brought new joy and meaning to it. For example, Michael is really into the intermission, and I hadn't really cared about it before they talked it through, and now I'm you know what? I like those little guys a lot more. On the other hand, Cameron was not digging the captcha system, and that was a little frustrating because every time they'd be down on it, I was like, no, I like this. Who is it for? It's for me. I want to watch them do inventory management. I like doing inventory management. Cameron also hates gushers, which I also think are great, but that I might only like gushers because I like Homestuck low-key. So jury's out on that one still. One of the coolest parts to me is their continuing discussion around how the Homestuck model has shaped fandom and media as it has progressed. For example, the lightning fast updates, the sort of lore Bible, Wikification, engagement farming, the author and fan engagement models of having a really active author and having the fans always trying to influence the story, how these things have expanded to other franchises and types of whatever's going on now and the internet at large today. It's very neat. As someone who wasn't on the internet really prior to this model of engagement, it's a real eye-opener. There's a little bit in the there's a recurring sort of segment in the later chunks of the podcast where they talk about a Dave cosplayer. The opposite of Dave is Vriska. And the opposite of Dave Strider hating this podcast is Vriska telling you that if you don't listen to this podcast, I'm going to actually have to hunt you down and feed you to my mom. So, I don't know, guys. You better get listening. Podcast, of course, isn't perfect. It's a little bit of a hard listen at the start just because they have more of a dry tone. And they are also going through the early acts with a level of, like, granularity that I was like, okay, we get it. Like, move on. But that's media criticism for you, I suppose. I think they find their stride by Act 3, Act 4 for sure, and that's where the comic finds its stride as well, so I think it's, it rhymes. Overall, I think it's a really worthwhile listen for both fans and non-fans alike. And as for ratings, I can't give it any more or less than an 8 out of 10.